All right, we're going to move on to example 1. You're asked to identify the vertex, x and y intercepts, and you're asked to sketch. Okay, so first things first, I noticed that a is less than 0 right away. Right, I know the parabola is going to go up, and it's going to have a max. Okay. All right, so the way you figure out the vertex is to recognize that this function is in standard form, and you can get the vertex by using the negative b over 2a formula, or you can complete the square. Most of you would probably just use the formula, which is fine, because the directions did not specify that you have to complete the square. So I'm just going to use the formula. X equals negative b over 2a, right? Negative b over 2a. So negative 4 over 2 times a. Over here, you have 4 over negative 2, and the x value of the vertex is just simply negative 2. Right? To get the y value of the vertex, you could just simply plug it back in. And over here, you're going to get negative 4 plus a plus 1. 9 minus 4, of course, is just 5. Okay, so I have the vertex. It's located at negative 2 comma 5. All right, and what else? I also need to get the y-intercept, right? I already told you that this last number is the y-intercept, but you could verify for yourself. F of 0, negative 0 squared minus 4 times 0 plus 1. Of course, you're just going to get 1. Okay, so 0 comma 1 is on the graph. And then to get the x-intercepts, right, you set y equal to 0, and you solve for x. All right, so typically when you solve an equation like this, right, there's a couple ways to solve a quadratic equation. You could try factoring, but a quick glance at these numbers, right, negative 1 is not going to give you negative 4 here in the middle. So factoring is not going to quite work. And I don't exactly want to complete the square with you guys in this particular problem because some of you will might be confused. I'll do that on the next problem. So what I'm going to do is just use the quadratic formula. Okay, so you could, if you want to keep this negative right here positive, you can move all the terms over. Okay, so I'm going to move it over to the left. And this equation, right, is equivalent to that equation, just to keep things nice and positive. Okay. All right, so use your quadratic formula, right? X is equal to negative 4 plus or minus the square root, b squared, 4 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. All right, so over here, you're going to get negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 plus 4, which is 20. And I would leave this in simplest radical form. Okay, so over here, you're going to get negative 4 plus or minus, this is 4 times 5, right? Inside over here, you have 4 times 5, so this is 2 root 5. And if you simplify this, right, you divide top and bottom by 2, you'll get negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 5. Okay, so negative 2 plus root 5, that's approximately, if you use your calculator, you're going to get 0.236. And over here, if you do negative 2 minus root 5, right, it's going to be approximately negative 4.236. Okay. All right, so you have more than enough information here. You can graph this. Okay, so we said A was less than 0, the vertex is negative 2 comma 5. So let's graph it. Okay, so vertex negative 2 comma 5 is somewhere over here. The parabola is going to go down, hit the y-intercept, maybe right here, okay, 0 comma 1. And then over here is where it's going to hit the x-axis at negative 4.236. And over here, it's going to hit the x-axis again. Okay, so you could write the exact value. I'm going to say this is negative 2 plus root 5. And over here, I'm going to say this is negative 2 minus root 5, okay, comma 0. Okay, so that would complete this particular problem, getting the x and y intercepts, getting the vertex, also the axis of symmetry, even though I didn't ask you, right? The AOS is just the x value of the vertex. X is equal to -2. All right, moving on. What if you're given a function like this? F of x is equal to 2x squared plus 8x. Okay, so you have a couple of options, right? You recognize that, again, this is standard form. But hopefully your factoring skills are strong enough to recognize, hey, I could just factor out a 2x and I have an x plus 4. And now, if I ask you which form this is in, you would say this is intercept form, right? Intercept form is nice because you can get the x and y intercepts really quickly. So first of all, recognize that a is positive. So you know the parabola is going to concave up. And let's get the x-intercepts. The way you get the x-intercepts, right, is you can set 2x equal to 0 or x plus 4 is equal to 0, right? All right, you set y equal to 0 and solve for x. So over here, one of the x-intercepts is 0. The other one is just -4. So we got the x-intercepts. And the y-intercept, right, is when you plug in x is 0. So f of 0, well, guess what? The y-intercept in this problem looks like it's just going to be 0. So you're going to get 0, 0 as a point on the graph, which is basically the same as your x-intercept, right? And what about the vertex? Well, because it's in intercept form, right, the vertex of a parabola in intercept form is just the midpoint. So in other words, x is equal to 0 plus -4 divided by 2, right? P plus Q divided by 2. So the x value of the vertex is -2. It's just the midpoint. And to get the y value, you plug it back into the original equation. Okay, so 2 times -2 squared plus 8 times -2. You're going to get 2 times 4 minus 16. So 8 minus 16, of course, is just -8. Okay, so your vertex is at -2, -8. -2, -8, without drawing all the tick marks, there it is, right? And one of my x-intercepts, oops, that's not -2, -8. Let me erase here. -2, -8 would place me in the third quadrant. So let's try that again. So -2, -8 is right here. My x-intercept is at 0. My other x-intercept is at -4. Okay, so you could label it 0, 0. -4 is 0. And then, you know the parabola is going to concave up. Okay, so the x and y intercept just happen to be the same point. And we said this coordinate right here, right, is -2, -8. Okay, so the AOS, even though it doesn't ask, just complete this problem. X is equal to -2. Okay, if I ask you, hey, does this function have a max or min? Hopefully you recognize and say, hey, this function has a minimum, right? And the minimum value is just the y value, right? -8. On the previous problem, just going back here, right? If I ask you, does this function have a max or min? You would say, this function has a maximum, and the maximum is just the y value of the vertex, which is 5. Okay, so hopefully, again, that makes sense, right? Because there's a lowest point on this parabola. All right, so that concludes examples 1 and 2, right? The first one was in standard form, and actually both of these forms are in standard form, but part B, I converted to intercept form just to show you a different way of approaching. Could you have done, use x equals -b over 2a for this problem? Of course. Okay, so unless I state specifically do it in a specific way, which I will show you in the next video where I'm going to ask you to complete the square, you're given some freedom.